Hi, I'm Kenneth Sampson, and you are currently watching a video from the MII Senior Expo Take a Strand. We had the opportunity and privilege of inviting speakers to speak on their field of expertise and to educate us on their profession and how we can relate it to our strands and also to our daily lives, as well as to assist students if a career, field, or strand is right for them. Now, without further ado, we hope that you learn from the video.
As RGC PhD. She is a licensed guidance counselor, and she will be representing the HUMSS strand by speaking on nonverbal communication. Again, let's give a warm welcome to Miss Medez.
I'm nervous with you guys. Imagine, I'm more nervous than presenting a talk to the regular audience than with you. Okay, so I'm getting myself, I'm leveling up with you. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I will be sharing with you about the nonverbal communication, and I am very mindful of time. You gave me 20 minutes. I will not go beyond 20 minutes because I would rather listen to your questions. And so let us start the presentation. I know I have to let you know what I do. I am a counselor, and being a counselor, I do counseling with individuals, with couples, and families. I also, the focus of the counseling would be problems affecting their person, their relationships, their work, their career, their studies, because I also include in the individuals, that would also include students and their productivity and community life for those people who are living in a community. So it's a little extensive because my being a counselor, my training is being a family, marriage and family counselor. I am not technically a psychologist, because when you call somebody a psychologist, like a licensed psychologist, they must be a graduate of psychology and have passed the licensure for psychology. I don't have that. My undergrad is architecture. So I'm kind of shifted to a different career, which is fine. I mean, like, guys finish college and then you might find a different career path in your life, and that's okay. So here I am in the family counseling. Okay, I also do a group process for special groups and families. So when I attend to families, it can be more than one person. It can be the whole bunch of people in the family. But so I call that group process. And there are special groups also that I attend to, whether it's presented by the company, by the office, or a community. Okay, so that's my counselor life. My being a workshop facilitator or workshop animator includes designing workshops and talks for personal and group transformation. Example, personal growth, couple growth, team building, staff development. That's the life of designing workshops. And aside from designing workshops, I also speak. So there are workshops that were designed by somebody else. I can speak, I can facilitate a workshop, and the difference between facilitating and animating, medyo demanding. Animating is a little bit demanding because you need to give life to the whole workshop. So it's like a dramatics sometimes, okay? And so there are workshops designed by others, which is ongoing in my life. I am a consultant on office where we run workshops on a regular basis, like a monthly basis, and that's part of my routine. And I can also speak on special topics in conferences. So it's merely just talking, not necessarily running a workshop. So these are the two major roles in my professional life. Okay. What happens to my day? Okay. That's what I was telling, what, guys, if you don't know that, for the younger students who don't know that Josh is my son, He's in grade 12 with you guys, okay? So I was talking to him one day. I was telling him, I think it was good that the students asked me to give a topic here. in this strand take a strand event of MI, because had it been a teacher who asked me, I would have said no because of the full schedule now during the pandemic. But because it was just, guys, you have a special direct hotline with Josh and me. So there you go. So as a counselor, what happens? It's a full day. It's from morning, 9:30 in the morning to sometimes 8:30 in the evening, sometimes 10 o'clock in the evening, depending. Now that it's online, most of my counseling sessions are done online. I have I don't know if it's a luxury, but the time, because there's no travel time, my schedules are full. Of course, there are meal breaks and breathers in between. So I would usually see 6 to 7 individuals or more if it's couples and families, 5 to 6 days a week. And I have to insist that I take like half a day off, or even my Sunday sometimes I'm doing counseling. Okay, it's not, it's just demanding during the pandemic. But even before the pandemic, it's a little bit tough already and tight. Okay, what else? I also do research work for certain cases. I never stop learning on understanding the specific cases that doesn't seem to connect with certain standards of intervention. So I research on them, and I research in the evening sometimes. It's just one person, but when I get interested in the case, I could research up until the wee hours of the morning. So it's important, part of my job as a counselor. I also refer to other mental health practitioners, such as psychiatrists, and I also talk to the psychiatrists. We do like multidisciplinary intervention to the case, and so I convene, I confer with the psychiatrist regarding this client, regarding this patient, and that also sometimes take my time, and that's part of my role as a counselor. All right. And of course, if I'm dealing with a student, I may schedule conferences with the school and the teachers to attend to the specific needs of the students, speak in behalf of the students, coordinate with the parents and the teachers, plan out a program for the student, understand, relate to the school what the student needs. That's part of my being a counselor. Okay, my being a workshop animator. What happens here? I develop and research workshop themes. So most often, if I'm invited to give a workshop, I would ask, what do you want? What do you need? What's the theme that you would like me to present? And sometimes I need to look into it, especially if the topic is a little different from the usual. So example of the workshop that I can design, if it's a corporate office, they would do team building. So it's not a cookie cutter. Even if I have regular slides for team building, I would usually understand what the office needs, the specific needs, what are the needs of the staff, and how do I design the workshop to accommodate that. And I also make my PowerPoint. So when Sophie and or Leon was saying that, you're willing to help me develop or make the PowerPoint, I was very glad to hear that. But sometimes with the full schedule, I do my PowerPoint the night before the presentation. Okay. So that's a little fun for me and a little extra work, but it's okay. I also, during my workshop days, I speak and run a workshop, and sometimes the workshop will take the whole day. Sometimes it takes the whole weekend. So in the office, when we run the workshop, it starts from Friday afternoon, the whole day of Saturday, the whole day of Sunday. And sometimes by the time I end up at 5 o'clock, I run home, and then by 7:30, I have to attend to a client in counseling. So that's how full a day is. And I also traveled to the workshop or conference sites before the pandemic. There are a few during the pandemic that I do that, and that's part of being an animator or part of a workshop facilitator. Sometimes I do counseling in between workshops, so it's really full. Okay, there you go. So now let's talk about nonverbal communication. I was kind of fast. It was 5 minutes, okay? So Let me know if I talk very fast. I'm very conscious of time. Okay, so according to researcher Dr. Merabian, okay, he said that 93% of communication is nonverbal. So imagine that's 93%. So how much is left? 7% of the verbal. So what comprises the 93 nonverbal? These are now the facial expressions. What else? You know, sometimes when you make faces, even if you're not talking, but if you are sad and your face just drops. If you're happy and you give a smile. If you're excited, you give a bigger smile. Those are facial expressions that you don't necessarily verbalize what they mean. So this is going to be a challenge for everyone now that you're more conscious of the nonverbals. Okay, the gestures. I'd like to focus on the school setup so it can be more applicable to you. What are the usual gestures in school? The way you stand, the way you carry yourself, the way you present yourself in class, the way you present a report can be part of the gestures. The way you move your hands, the way you move your body, do you walk back and forth? Those are part of the gestures. Okay. I will only give an overview of this because this is an easy information. You can go to the net and, look into the details of this because I would rather focus on the following slides, which is more applicable to you. Okay, what else? When we talk about paralinguistics, it means, the tone of voice. So even if it's just a word, for example, you say why, you can say why again in a different tone, as in why, or you say the why again, why, so it conveys a different message depending on the tone, depending on the pitch. Okay. Sometimes even it's a yes. Somebody calls you, your teacher calls you and asks your name. Let's say Darren, and you say yes, or you can say yes, or you can say yes. Okay. So that's part of the paralinguistics. Okay, what else? We have the body language and the posture. Are you slouching? Are you like standing confidently? Are you like curving? Like, how do you usually sit? Do you cross your legs? Do you sit straight? Do you present a confidence? It speaks even if your mouth is not saying anything. Your body speaks. And that's part of the nonverbals. Okay, then we have, of course, the eye contact. Do people really look at the eye when they speak? There's some people, some of the nonverbals actually are cultural. I remembered when we were giving a workshop somewhere in summer, and we were expecting that when we talk to people, they look at us in the eyes. When we engage, we usually establish eye contact. But we realized later that for them, from their culture, when they don't look at you directly, it's a sign of respect. So we need to understand that sometimes nonverbals are also cultural and sometimes eye conscious. But generally, it is helpful that when you speak to someone, you look at them in the eye, usually. Okay, but not naman to ganyan talaga, di ba? Okay. And then we have the haptics or the touch. There's some people who touch when they exchange a message non-verbally, let's say handshaking, and the grip may also convey a message, maybe like the common ones among the handshake. If you grip, there's a heavy grip on the person in the handshake, it means maybe like a sense of, confidence, or sometimes less of that does not convey confidence, or maybe a trust, maybe, so they have meanings. And sometimes people are more, when they give you a pat on the shoulder, it also shows that, I trust you, you can trust me. So there's a message in the touch process. In my practice of counseling, we are very careful about touches because sometimes people we're talking to have significant experiences, negative experiences with touches. So we usually are mindful not to be very touchy with people. But when, the rapport is established and we know each other, sometimes we give hugs. Sometimes we are just spontaneous with touches in appropriate ways. Okay. Then we have appearance, the way you clothe yourself, the way you wear your hairstyle. Okay, probably sometimes your accessories will speak of your appearance. Sometimes, even if, example, a police officer, it's part of their uniform. If the police officer is not wearing a uniform, you won't really give the necessary respect or the necessary attention. But when somebody wears the uniform, right away there is an associated message. When you go see a doctor, a medical doctor, and they're not wearing their uniform, how do you feel? Would you feel more confident to talk to them if they're wearing their uniform? Or would you feel more at ease if they're not wearing their uniform, because at least you can relate in a personal level? So that conveys a different message. Sometimes people also in the appearance use the color of their clothes to convey a message. For people who speak with authority in giving speeches and public conferences, sometimes they wear dark color clothes or maybe black clothes to give a sense of authority on being a speaker. Okay, so colors are played in this context. That's appearance. And then we have proximity, or the space and distance. So when we talk to people, we maintain a certain distance. When you give when you talk in public, you also maintain a certain distance, because you're respecting the boundaries. There are people who cannot, don't feel safe when you're too close to them. But of course, when you see people, like regular people, public people, when they're too close with each other, there's a message. Maybe they're closer, maybe they're more personal in their relationship. So that also conveys a message. And then we have silence. Sometimes, di ba, silence speaks. Ano nga nasabi natin? Silence or non-verbal speaks louder than words. Okay, so we also consider that silence as part of the nonverbal. Some authors would also include humor, because it's not really saying specific words, but a kind of laughter can also convey a message that can also be part of the nonverbal. Okay, so as I said earlier, the details of these you can research in the net if you're really very interested in understanding or the meaning of the different nonverbal manifestations in communication. I'd like us rather to go to the more important message that I'd like to share with you, and this is understanding nonverbal behaviors among yourselves and others. So what are the nonverbal behaviors that you need to watch out for in yourself and others? Let me give you a premise. What is the premise? We are social beings, meaning it is natural for us to engage, to interact, to participate, to contribute. When we give, we also receive, and our faces express a variety of emotions depending on our experiences. So this is the premise. This is the background. If you veer away from this normal background, normal premise, then it becomes questionable. Okay? So what are some of our examples? When you or others are usually isolating, withdrawing, being alone, in their, let me see, hold on. I'm having my código here. There, being alone and non-engaging with others, you will begin to question, or you will begin to notice, because that's not the usual. Even if you're an introvert, by the way, even if you are an introvert, you still have the capacity to engage and interact in a normal interactive situation like the classroom. But if you're extremely isolating and withdrawing, then you will have to start noticing yourself and others. Okay, what else? When there is a conflicting facial expression. What are conflicting facial expressions? For example, you perfect your exams. You're supposed to be happy. You top your exams, but you are sad in terms of your facial expression. We call it incongruence. It's not aligned to your experience and to your emotions. Your face does not show the real-time experience that you're going through. Okay, that's a conflicting process. What else? Example, you lost your best friend and you're smiling. You just lost your best friend. You lost somebody. You lost a classmate. And here you go. You're happy. You're smiling. You're giggling. That's a little contradicting to the real-time experience. Okay. What else? Your external appearance and behavior is contrary to what is expected. Example, you were expected to go to school and have groomed yourselves properly, but you're sometimes, you look shabby. You look like you just wore the clothes that you wore yesterday. If that's constant, then it becomes questionable. So remember, the keyword is constancy. It's always happening. Once in a while, maybe it's fine, but if it's always happening, then you will begin to wonder what's happening. Sometimes, or not sometimes, you're expected to be alert, to be participative, to be engaging in a classroom or in the school, but inside the classroom, you're always sleepy and you're spaced out. You're detached. You don't connect. You're always late in your attendance and submission of academic requirements. That is also a nonverbal behavior that you would want to look into. Okay? And then we have intense feeling or experience of fear or inhibition causing behavioral restraint. What do I mean by this? What do I mean by behavioral restraint? You're not able to express yourself. You're not able to speak. You're not able to behave accordingly. Example, in a class recitation, you definitely have studied your lessons for the day and you know the answer to the teacher's question, but you could not raise your hand, or you are inhibited. You are not resisting. You hesitate in raising your hand, or when you're asked the question, even if you know the answer, you hesitate to answer, not because you don't want, but you have difficulty expressing yourself. That's what I meant by intense feeling or experience of fear. And where's the fear coming from? That's what you need to discover. Okay, maybe there's a fear of being embarrassed, the fear of making a mistake, the fear of so many other things. And that now manifests into a behavior. So here's one last example. What else? When you want to be part of a group and you don't get involved. For example, after class, your classmates would go on an outing, go to UP Town before. Go to UP Town and have this afternoon merienda. You want to be part of that, but you hesitate in including yourself. And even if you were invited, you would rather say no, but deep inside you would want to. That could also be an experience of inhibition. So what do we do? If you are this, talk to someone and ask for help. You have a guidance counselor in school, just talk to her and just describe what's happening to you, and maybe ask, I don't know what's happening to me, but can I just talk to you and maybe explore? Okay, just talk to a friend, talk to teacher, talk to someone. Okay, if you observe this in others, or if you know someone who manifests this behavior, reach out and clarify. Sometimes the person just needs to be engaged. So you can say like, I noticed that you are always quiet. Is there anything happening with you? I noticed that you look very sad for the past week. Is there anything happening with you that is showing concern? That's also like connecting. That's also like reaching out. That's also encouraging. So when you notice someone who seems to look at you and wants to be part of the group, but she's not, or he's not being part of the group, you can initiate. Do you want to be part of us? So that's how we can address the nonverbal behaviors because they are messages. Okay. And so finally, what is my last word? Let us listen to ourselves and others, not only with our ears, but also with our eyes. Okay? Thank you very much. Take care of yourself. Now we have the open forum. Okay, I will
Right.
stop my share screen. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Medez, for that very eye-opening and informative presentation. I'm sure that the students here today were able to learn a lot from your lecture. Now, we will be allotting this time for a Q&A session. Feel free to type down your questions in the chat box or unmute if you want to ask. You may also opt to send your questions privately to me. So, yeah. All right. So we have one question. All right. All right. Question for the speaker: has counseling affected your mental health in any way? And do their problems or troubles affect you as well?
Has it affected my mental health? Not with the clients that I am meeting, but I may have had episodes of my own mental health issues, but not from the clients. How come? It's a training. This is a profession. I've been trained for it. So if I see people, like a number of people during the day, I don't own their problems. Okay, it's theirs. I attend to their problems, but at the end of the day, I have my own problems. Okay. What was the other question? I'm sorry.
We have another question from
No, the
Bianca.
second question from
Oh, sorry. Do their problems or troubles affect you as well?
it does not really affect me negatively, but it affects me in the context of me extending my thinking process about them. So it's more of a concern and more of like, how can I help this person? The situation is a little tricky. That's the effect, but not so much as I end up like too affected that I own up their own concerns or their own issues. No, I don't.
All right. Okay, so we have another question by Bianca. What's the main difference about being a counselor or being a psychologist?
I mentioned earlier that if you have the title of a psychologist, then you should have a license in psychology, practice of psychology. They call it registered psychologist. If me, I'm a counselor because I have an postgraduate training of counseling. So technically speaking, I function like a psychologist. It's just the title. I function like a psychologist, like a clinical psychologist, because there are many fields of psychology as well. So I attend to concerns, but maybe in addition, you might wonder what's the difference between a psychologist / counselor and a psychiatrist. A psychiatrist is a medical doctor. They can dispense a medication. They can write prescriptions. I cannot. A psychologist cannot. Okay, so if there are issues presented to me in counseling that I feel needs medication or needs further evaluation, I would refer to a psychiatrist. And then the psychiatrist and I work together because I do therapy, meaning I have a number of interventions that does not include medication. So if we call it non-pharmacologic interventions, that's the work of the counselor and the psychologist. And me specifically, I'm a family counselor, so I can attend to the whole family. And I'm also a marital counselor, so I attend to marriages and relationships.
All right. So we have an anonymous question. How do you approach a friend that treats you as their psychologist? And how do you tell them that they should seek professional help?
The way you're asking it. Thank you for trusting me with your story, but I am not capable. I'm not skilled to handle your concern. I would rather recommend that you talk to the guidance counselor in school or somebody else. Make it simple, straightforward, but gentle. So we can continue to talk to each other. I can continue to listen to your concerns, but there will be times when I have to be honest with you. I cannot handle it. So please get the professional help.
All right. Right. We have one from Casey. Was the training to not be affected challenging, or was it hard at first?
We're training for what?
I think training for family counseling.
Okay.
Or to not be affected. To not be affected.
Was the training to not be affected difficult?
Yeah.
I don't think so, because when you choose a career, it's part of we call it like a calling, like a purpose. So it comes out naturally in you. You have that. You have the basic criteria to function in the profession that you have chosen. Remember, counseling is my second career. So it is already within me to be able to listen. And it's just a matter of integrating the skills and the formal training, because before I went into formal training, I was already dealing with people in a community life for 9 years. So it's natural for me to be listening and talking to people, attending to concerns. And then I got my training. So it's just a matter of, like putting words to the skills that I was already practicing. So it's not hard for me. I don't know with others. Yes, thank you.
Sorry.
I'm also reading that. I'm also reading some of the questions.
Sorry. So, someone asked, how do you not get overwhelmed nor get affected by the problems you help, and still have the motivation to keep helping more people?
True. How do I not get overwhelmed? To be honest, sometimes I get overwhelmed, especially if the day is full and the week is full. It will be. I would be a hypocrite to say I'm not overwhelmed. Sometimes I'm just too overwhelmed. By the way, the pandemic has really given me more schedules. But at the end of the day, I refocus. At the end of the day, or at the start of the day, I usually start my day with meditation for like an hour and prayer for an hour, so I can be more disposed to listen to them. And still have the motivation to keep helping more people. I'm coming from my passion. I'm coming from my purpose. So when you're coming from your passion, the energy is unlimited. The energy is overflowing. So that's the main thing. So I know that this is something I want to do. This is something that I like doing. And it's just the physical self that complains, but the whole spirit and the mind and everything else is just overflowing. That's passion.
All right.
Okay.
We have one question from Giu. How can we look like we are listening carefully when someone's talking? Like, what nonverbal languages do you prefer when you were to make someone feel appreciated, or any sort of hack to please people?
Yeah. Okay. Look at the person in the eye. Practice that. Sometimes, okay, this is a secret, guys. Okay. Sometimes when the client is like talking for too long, and we have certain attention span, I will look at the person in the eye and then listen and nod my head, and then yeah, but I would just catch the last sentence, because then the details of it I would probably not be able to get it. And for me to be able to get the gist of what she or he was saying, I would sometimes say, okay, so in short, you were saying. So make the person summarize what he or she said. I don't necessarily need to summarize it for him. Or I would catch the last sentence and I would say, did I hear you right? Is this what you said? So it's just, like rehashing myself. Okay, now go back, because you were all over the place. You were not listening anymore. I get distracted sometimes, okay? Attention span. Sometimes I get sleepy. Sometimes, so I have to write down my notes. Okay. So that's fine. That's part of the training. That's part of the, the fun in counseling. And it's a secret, okay? So I'm only telling you this. Okay.
That was cool. um, so we have a question from Hannah. How has your job changed since the start of the pandemic? Is it harder to manage your work in an online environment?
Um, to be honest with you, mm, I would maybe 80%. I like the online counseling because I travel less. 80%. I see during the pandemic, I see the face full because when I do face to face, they wear mask. So I only see like the portion of their face. So it's difficult for me to connect with the facial expressions. Even if the body, I can see the body, but most of the emotions and most of the messages are given through their faces. And if it's covered with masks, I have difficulty with that. But when we do online session, I can see them close up. So I would prefer. Now, what else has changed? The scheduling has changed. When I was doing face to face, I could handle like, hour to hour session. But when I was doing online sessions, I can't. I have to give myself 30-minute intervals, break in between sessions. That's a time to stand up, a time to nibble something, a time to catch up with a 15-minute sleep, time to, so the 30 minutes is very important for me, which in the face-to-face may not be necessary. And another change is that with online, I extend the hours. Sometimes I go like 10 o'clock in the evening, sometimes even more. If there's really a client who would insist that I see them, maybe the mindset is, you're at home anyway, so can you? Even if it's holiday, there's no holiday in the online session, except for the Holy Week. I said it's my holiday. So there. Those are the changes. So there's more clients during the pandemic as a result also of the stress that the pandemic has facilitated in us.
Right. We have a question from
What
Bianca.
kind of research?
What
Yeah.
research do counselors perform?
Um, behavioral problems like specific mental health issues, like I would look into, for example, I would have personality problems. Let's say I will just mention one. It may sound like a jargon. Let's say schizoid. The psychiatrist would tell me he or she has symptoms for schizoid personality disorder. What is that? Okay, so I will research. Okay, that's one of the research. Or maybe I would see symptoms, and then I would look at my little. I have a little like handbook, like little thingy book. There you go. This is DSM 4 TR, but I have this, and then I look at the symptoms. Ooh, what is the disorder of this person? That's the kind of research that I also do. And then I would also sometimes look at the internet to say, okay, how do you help someone with bipolar? Okay, just to refresh myself, and then I'll be able to talk to the family member. Maybe you need to deal with your family member in this way. How do you help someone with borderline personality disorder? I will research. Those are the kinds of research that I do.
All right. Okay. Mika asks, where did you receive your training?
I took my marriage and family counseling from Ateneo, from CEFAM. So it's my master's. And then I almost 98% finished my doctorate in family studies from Miriam.
All right. From Mavic, how long did you study counseling?
2 years, full time. That's the master's. For the PhD, oh, guys, it's 2012, so it's like what, 9 years? It's just the dissertation that took me forever. But the academics, it's just like 2 years. And then I lingered, and then I slept, and then I forgot about it. And then I, just lingered.
Elisek asks, what was the most difficult thing that happened in your career?
Difficult thing that happened in my career. Difficult is dealing with issues of family members. Sometimes family members would ask for my professional help, but it's a little difficult because the engagement process, the boundaries there is a little loose. And so I remember the time when I was dealing with a specific family concern, and I was actually working with another counselor, and I was more experienced than the counselor, but I was telling the counselor, you take the lead and I will tell you what's happening and I will support you. And so he did. And during the sessions, he would start asking the question, and before the intervention happens, I'm the one starting to cry, and difficulty handling. This is my family, so that's one of the challenges. But otherwise, other challenges in the career, maybe when it's it's not a common issue, then I really have to spend time looking into what's wrong with the person. That's when I really spend time on mulling about it, researching, exploring, gathering data, and so on.
All right, now looking at the time, there are too many questions, so this one will be the last one for today. When a person discloses that they are thinking of self-harm, how do you respond to the question so that you do not break the trust, but are able to ensure that the person gets help, especially if the parent is unaware?
That's very tricky. Okay, so I would usually at the start of the conversation, I would explain the confidentiality clause, which is what we talk about remains between the two of us, especially if I'm dealing with a minor. So, I will not squeal to your parents what we're talking about, the details. But if I hear from you behaviors, I see you or you manifest behaviors that will be hurting to yourself and others, I will have to break the confidentiality and I'll have to talk to your parents about it. So I really do. I have clients right now who have tendencies to hurt themselves, not just tendencies, have really hurt themselves and have the tendency to go further and think of committing suicide. I talk to the parents about it. And if they get mad at me, I would say we talked about this, but I would rather not risk in not talking to the parents about it. That's why, see, I'm a family counselor. So it's easy for me to engage the family and members of the family with what's happening to the person I'm talking to. It has to be just straightforward. You're hurting yourself. I'm concerned about you. I'm worried about you. The other day, just yesterday, a client was drew something, and I said, take a picture of your drawings and show it to me. So there's this one drawing that says, I want to end my life today. And so I responded back and I said, I'm worried about this drawing. And then she said, oh, it's just those are just lyrics from a song that I copied. I said, okay, thank you for assuring me, but I want to talk about this some more. So straightforward. We address right away conversations, behaviors regarding self-harm.
All right. Now, once again, we would like to take this chance to show our gratitude to Ms. Medez for taking their time out of their busy schedule to spend their afternoon with us as a guest speaker at our very first online expo, Take a Strand.
Before you go, please make sure to answer the feedback form that is located down below on the description. Aside from that, we would like to thank our sponsors as well, White Breeze Palawan Hotel, Food Talk Supermart, and the Regalado family for their help. Once again, thank you for your participation. Signing out, Batch of 2021.